This one's for Deep Blue Communications with founder and CEO Brian Epstein. Brian, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Pete, thanks for having me. Very excited to see what happens today.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. I think this is a great opportunity for this one's for bringing in a businessman with your type of experience, especially since we really tried to, give entrepreneurs, the right advice to try to help grow their businesses and try to help them kind of jump over some of the potholes. I'm sure you and I, and you more in particularly, have run across over your day. So, I really just appreciate you taking the time today to speak with us and about your business and how you came to be the successful businessman that you are today. So thank you.
My pleasure.
So for some of the people who might not know what Deep Blue Communications is, maybe you could give us a little background on yourself.
Sure.
Where you came from, college, maybe the speed dating version.
Sure.
And then we can get into Deep Blue Communications.
Should I start when I was 6 or should I skip past
Wherever
that?
you want.
So
we'll leave it up to you.
I grew up on Long Island.
Yeah.
I went to Union College, which was when I came to
Great
this
school.
area. I have an engineering degree, mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
My first job out of college was in New York City at Otis Elevator.
Okay.
When I was working there, I discovered that actually this was in 1988 I graduated, right? So give you perspective of my age, put it out there. So in 89, right around there, it was IT was kind of a new, skill set, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the IT guy that worked there really was not very good. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this podcast.
I'm sure he will.
So I became known as the IT guy, right? I was this young kid, knew how to hook up printers, computers, and do all that stuff. And so over time, I actually realized, hey, I think I'm actually pretty good at this IT stuff. So I actually got married shortly after that.
How old were you?
So I got married to a girl I knew from high school. I was 25. She was 24. I was living in New York City. Got married. We quit our jobs. We went coast to coast trying to figure out where we wanted to live. And believe it or not, chose Albany. And we came back here. My wife went to Binghamton. I went to, obviously, Union. I didn't really know anyone here, but I knew how to sell because I was a salesperson at Otis, and I knew IT stuff.
So we do have something in common.
See?
We both could sell.
There you go. So I came to Albany and went door to door and was saying, like, I knew how to build computers and I knew how to do IT services, right? And so eventually I built up my business called Vision Systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that business for about 10 years. I had about 25 employees.
How old were you when you started that business?
So I started that business in 92.
Oh.
Right. So 92. So I graduated school in 88.
Yeah.
You can do your math here. So I started that in 92. I then years 8. So right around 2000, we had some kids working for us, high school, college at the time, and they started writing things to manage our business. And so we used to do a lot of tasks for customers. So we might have a law firm or an accounting firm. We would sell them a block of, say, 50 hours. And so how do you track it? Right. So we would originally did it on Microsoft Access, eventually put it online. And then so customers could then log in and they could see actually how their time is being used, where it went, and then they could auto repopulate. And so that was actually the genesis for Autotask. Right. And so we decided I joined EO, which was YEO at the time. And I was one of the original founders of that. Oh. And then in the group, we're like, how do you become bigger than just this little IT company? Mm-hmm. And so I decided to spin that off, the technology into that. And so I kind of had Vision Systems and I had Autotask, and then things were going great. CEG had me as the Entrepreneur of the Year.
Oh, shout out to Andrew Kennedy.
So, life was good at the time, but it was really behind the scenes, what people don't tell you as an entrepreneur is that there was some bad things that happened. I had some partners in my old business that really did, my opinion, some things that were unethical. I wound up selling Vision Systems to Tag Solutions. So they bought that, but right around the time I discovered that there were some problems and the valuation went down a lot. I also sold out of Autotask for a fraction of truthfully, you look at where it went, kudos to the team that brought it to where it went. But I got out of both of those and decided to go all in on Wi-Fi.
Question before we get into that. What do you think was that you said that you had some partners that may have that did some unethical things?
Yeah.
What was kind of the biggest mistake you learned from that?
It's a great question. When you're a kid, you think, I want to bring in all my friends. I want to be the nicest boss. Yeah. I'm going to give them stock. I'm going to do all that stuff. People don't appreciate what stock means, right? When you're an owner, that also means you're liable for debts, right? There's a lot of negatives that goes with being an owner. And so what I learned from that, what I would encourage people is that when you're thinking of how do you reward key employees, how do you motivate them? There's ways you can motivate them with future options or with bonus plans or a lot of other things to say, if this scenario were to come true, how would you want to be rewarded, and then structure that rather than giving them stock, making them a partner and thinking that it's there. Because it ultimately, it's not a democracy, right? And someone needs to be in control. And, I had to learn the hard way, right? How to do that. And so I sold off those businesses. And when I started Deep Blue, which was basically, we had the Albany Airport was a client. Did their IT work, and then we did the Wi-Fi for them. Yeah. And so then I did a coffee shop. And then I decided when we did the Wi-Fi at the airport that we wanted to also do the billing platform for them. And they said if we wrote
platform?
the billing. So
okay. Yeah.
You go there and they charge you.
Yeah.
There. So shout out to my buddies at Gavant Software.
Yeah.
They were right out of college. I hired them to write the software for us. They did a great job. So we built the billing platform, and we charged a fee for Wi-Fi. So I called the platform Wi-Fi Fee.
Wi-Fi Fee is the first name,
that was the name of it. I sold off the other two businesses, and then I incorporated Wi-Fi Fee. So when I sold Vision, I held on to that asset, right? I said, I'm going to hold on to this. This is my business. I'm going to go forward with that. And so,
and when you were hiring, so from your past mistakes, with what you learned, how did you kind of implement kind of a system and like kind of a incentivized system for new employees that look, if you're going to be a part of this, you need to do X, Y, and Z to get money or to rise in this.
Yeah. So when you think about it, right? So there's friends and family, right? Which is basically what I did for Vision Systems.
Okay.
Right. Like, it seems good. It's an easy way to start. You don't know what you're doing. It depends on who your friends and family are, right? Yeah. So that's one way to do it, right? Yeah. Autotask. When we did that, they went through the VC route right after I was bought out. That was the path they went. And then when I did Wi-Fi Fee, there was an Angels Network called Tech Valley Angels Network at the time. So I pitched in front of T-Van. I got some investment dollars from that. And then they came in as partners on that. Oh, okay. But again, I've helped businesses, like, what are the terms? What do the investors want, right? And so I would also encourage people, if you take anyone's money, that you understand what is their expectation, right? Are they literally just giving you, like, a true angel is really just like, here you go. If you give my money back in 10 years, great, right? That's an angel. Yeah. Most people are not angels, right? Yeah. Most people might have money, give you money. They're not, they want to help you, but there's an expectation, which is fine, it's right? Business. And so that's right, it's business, right? So what is their expectation? Is it that when there's going to be an exit at some point? Is it that they want to get a distribution every month? So if they give you $100,000, they want to get maybe 10% interest every year. So it's really important to outline all that from day one so that your board is aligned and that there's no conflict. And truthfully, I had conflict with almost every board or ownership I had because I didn't do that. And in fairness to them, right? Like,
you live and you learn, though, right?
We were on different pages, and then later on in life, people are like, well, where's my check? And you're like, wait, what? Like, I thought we were just growing this thing, right?
No, that's a great point.
So it's great to kind of hammer that out and get to where you're going. And then, with each deal you do, right? And so then I did private equity. That becomes clear again, what they're looking for, even within private equities, right? Are they looking for 5-year growth and then they're out? Or are they looking for distributions and then slow growth? So it's really key to understand when you take anyone's money, what is their goal? How do you guys align? Are they the right investor for you on that, right? Is that aligned with how you want to invest or not?
That's a great point. So you were talking about the Albany Airport, and I interrupted you.
That's all right.
So I don't know.
So we installed the Wi-Fi there, right? So they had a use case where they wanted security guards to walk around with like spy cameras essentially in their glasses and see with organized crime. And the best way to do that was through Wi-Fi. And so we designed the network, but when we built the platform for them, it gave us a business to start, right? And so I got out of the other businesses, and then when I started Wi-Fi Fee, I had 3 employees up for the first 4 or 5 years, right? And then eventually we decided we wanted to go national, and the best way to do that was through hospitality. And so we decided we were going to acquire the smallest company we could afford to acquire, which was 5 guys on the West Coast called Deep Blue Wireless. And so they had a bunch of Ramadas, a bunch of Comfort Inns, got us going, and now we had a national footprint. And then,
how'd you get the money to acquire them, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I don't mind you asking at all. So, it's funny how when you take people's money, right, you don't always know who the investors are.
Yeah.
One of the investors had represented 3 other investors, so he was half the money, and the other 3 were the other half. And they were more or less silent.
Yeah.
But one of them decided to become unsilent at one point. He originally invested $25,000. He wanted to come to a board meeting, and he wanted to, what I assumed was, great, here's this guy I've never met. He wants his 25 grand back, right? He hasn't got his money. So shortly before he walks in, I hear he's an extremely high net worth individual, and he, is here to help. And so I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. So this individual basically said to me, this is a true angel, right? This is someone that has more money than he knows what to do with, has a lot of connections. Sure, he wants to get his money back. He's not a fool, right? But he knows, he saw me, he saw what we were doing, he believed in me, and he said, if you let me come in and you trust me, I'll make sure that, you can achieve your goals. And so he basically, rather than taking more stock, went to his bank, which he was the largest holder in that bank, and he said, I need you to give these guys a loan that I'll personally guarantee.
Nice.
And in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, right, actually it was around then, banks weren't giving money out. It was very hard to get loans. So by him giving us a loan, we basically gave him an 8% guarantee fee, right? So I paid him 8%. I paid the bank like 4 or 5%. So it was a high interest loan, but he was taking a risk on us. And by doing it that way, we were able to take some of the money and acquire a company, and then we were able to take some of the money. So he gave us basically like $3 million or something that we held, some of it to finance deals, and it really got our business going. And so, truthfully, without someone like this guy, I don't want to say his name.
No, that's fine.
But he was really instrumental in helping us to get going. And so sometimes it's those surprises, right? You don't realize you're being watched by the silent investors. You never know who they are.
Yeah.
So the guy who put the least amount of money into the business turned out had the most money.
And just a question, how do you figure out, how much the company was worth in California? Like, how did you figure out how much you wanted to buy them out for?
So there's a lot of formulas, right? You can do, most people do multiple of EBITDA or sales or profits or stuff like that. Things are very inflated on the West Coast for the most part. And so this guy wanted a much higher valuation than I thought his business was worth.
Yep.
But since we were merging the businesses, all I had to do was take the formula he wanted to use for his business, and I applied it to my business, and the ratios were where they needed to be. So my business I was about, I think, like 65, 70%, and he was like, 35%, right? So I just used the same formula for both of us. And truthfully, we overinflated both businesses because he felt better about, wow, my business is really worth this.
Okay.
When, in my opinion, on the valuations we had here, it probably wasn't worth that. So it gave us a lot of flexibility to kind of come to terms.
So what happened after you acquired that company? How did Deep Blue Communications grow?
So we were called Wi-Fi Fee.
Yeah.
The name of the company we acquired was Deep Blue Wireless.
Yeah.
I like the name. It's a cool
I
name.
do too. I love Deep Blue.
Right. Wi-Fi Fee was really a billing platform. It wasn't really applicable. So we changed. First thing we did, and by the way, we bought his assets, right? So the shell company that he had, Deep Blue Wireless, still stayed in business. We bought the assets. And so we called ourselves Deep Blue Communications to differentiate and to also express that we do more than just Wi-Fi. Right. So Deep Blue Communications, we changed our name. It was pretty straightforward. And then, so they had a lot of Ramadas. Ramada got bought by Wyndham. We became one of the first. Wyndham put out an RFP to certify partners. And so we became one of the first Wyndham certified partners. And so business really took off from there. And then after that, Marriott came along, did an RFP. We won that. Hyatt had an RFP. Hilton had an RFP, right? So we won all those RFPs. And so by that, what I mean is like, right, so they're franchised. And so the brands choose, right? If you go to a Courtyard, right, that mattress has been certified, right? The shower head's been certified. The Wi-Fi has been certified, right? So they might have multiple vendors that deliver the same product, but you have to get that product, right? And so within the brands, they certify a few amount of companies that can deliver that exact same product or similar product to that. And so then you still got to go sell to the ownership groups and the management groups that own the hotels, but it gives you a license to hunt with all those. And then you find as you get one brand that helps you with the next brand, because they're like, oh, you got Hilton, like that's really cool. You got that, you can probably do mine, right? So yeah, exactly. So we consistently grew at least 30% every year for about 10 years.
I think this would be a good time to ask, what exactly does Deep Blue Communications do?
You're still asking, huh? So we engineer, install, and support Wi-Fi networks all across the country, typically for hospitality, retail, and large venues.
Okay. And I was reading something. You do the Saratoga racetrack too, right?
We do. So we installed it there, I think 7-8 years ago was the first one, and every year we do refreshes there.
Okay. And are you part of any other racetracks?
So Monmouth Racetrack, Sam Houston, and then we've got amusement parks. So if you've ever been to Legoland or you ever been to Cedar Point, Knott's Berry Farm.
I never even been to Disney World, okay? So, so as far as, I know that from the articles I read, Deep Blue is expected to go, wants to go, or will go from a $50 to $500 million business, right?
Yeah.
How is that going to happen? What are your plans for expansion?
Yeah, so officially we're about a $40 million company, right? So you can follow us in the Inc.'s fastest growing company. Last year we reported was $38 million. So we're not going to be reporting anymore because now we're 100% owned by Comcast, and so our books are going to be through them, and we're a division of there. So ultimately we want to create a $1 billion impact on Comcast business, right? So Comcast business is roughly an $8 billion division of a $100+ billion company, right? And so how do you make an impact like that, right? And so perfect example is we just closed the deal just Friday, right? Today's Monday, of a company, I won't say the name, but they're opening roughly 2,500 centers all across the country.
Oh, wow.
They want to have bandwidth. They want to have SD-WAN. They want to have managed firewall, and they want to have Wi-Fi, right? And so up until we came into the picture, Comcast could do only part of that puzzle. Now that they own a company that understands RF design, really understands it at the nuances that Wi-Fi is not just installing an access point and creating an SSID. There's a lot to it, right? Like anything you do well. So because they have us, we were able to close this deal. And so, you do the math over a lot of those locations. That's over a 5-year deal. That's probably about a $30 million deal just from that one, right? Wow. So that's a deal that, yes, we got a piece of it, but without us, they wouldn't have even had it, right? And so that's where you start looking at it, and you start saying, how does Comcast evolve, right? Comcast was a residential company, right? They took on small businesses, right? So if you own a restaurant, they do a great job. They give you a cable modem, right? Now they also have a managed enterprise team that takes Fortune 1000 companies, and they install managed firewalls. They do that, but they're typically small, cookie cutter, large, a lot of locations. They don't really install large locations, complex solutions and stuff like that. That's what we do, right? And so by having us there, now you got the full breadth of everything we do. And then when you start looking at hospitality in particular, they're certified to sell bandwidth to, for example, Hilton. We're able to sell the Wi-Fi to Hilton. Now we have a full end-to-end product that we go there, right? So if I'm an end user and I'm having problems on the Wi-Fi, a lot of times that problem is not really the Wi-Fi, it's the internet connection we're connecting to. So by getting it from one company, there's one throat to choke. We can have better quality of service on that. So again, it differentiates us. The only other company really that's in our space that also is in their space is AT&T.
Okay.
So my customers, or my competitors, I should say, are limited really to AT&T and maybe the other cable companies, right? Charter, Cox, that are in that space.
And when you have so many different locations, I think it's about 1,500 in the hospitality space, give or take.
So we got almost 3,000 locations.
Okay, so I was off.
Yeah,
I was a little off. How do you, if there's something that goes wrong, I did some research on it, but I know I'll say it wrong if I try to explain it. How do you detect if something's going wrong at one of these locations? What happens?
Yeah, so we've built custom tools, not getting too detailed. We use SNMP to monitor. It's a standard that works with all equipment, right? So whether it's Cisco, HP Aruba, Ruckus, we've built custom probes that we can get detailed information. So, to me, the whole detail is about having facts in front of you. If someone just calls and I'm blind and I don't know what's going on, it's very hard for me to troubleshoot. But because we monitor every single device on the network, including stuff that's not even ours, their TVs, the cameras, all that stuff.
Yeah.
We can see everything going on in a property. And so the networks today are converged. So it's not just, when I say we do the Wi-Fi, we have the switches that everything connects into. So if you have cameras, you have TVs, you have panic systems, they're all on our network. So if my network goes down,
that's a lot of responsibility.
That's right. So we go down, they go down. So it doesn't make sense if your TV's down to call the TV guys, right? Call us. We have access, we have visibility into everything. And so that's where everything's changing, is that we see everything that's going on by the tools, and then we can pinpoint fairly quickly, is it something that needs to be rebooted? Is it the cable thing? All right. So we're able to do that very quickly. And then often we can work with the staff on site to say, check this, reboot that, and do that and escalate very quickly.
That's awesome. So one thing I wanted to say when you talk about the cameras and the Wi-Fi and the hospitality business, the entertainment business, the retail business I know you're in as well, how important is it when you support the Wi-Fi to capture the data of the customers in order to help your clients advertise to their guests? And do you provide that service?
So, we're very careful to do what our customers want. And so my customer, Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, we don't collect any data that they don't want us to have and use it for any reason. So just to be very clear, we don't own any data. It's my customer's data. We typically look at things in aggregate, right? And so if you think about hotels, people are usually fairly private in hotels. So we've dabbled in social media authentication in hotels, and truthfully, it kind of scares people, right? The fact that the front desk can say, "Oh, look at that person that is staying in room 202. Now I've got a lot of information on that." So we kind of backed off. The industry kind of backed off from social media for the most part in hospitality. In retail, though,
retail, I think
people are
big.
cool with that, right? You're just looking to get deals, right? You're okay with being marketed. And so the reason you connect to the Wi-Fi typically is not because you absolutely need to get on the internet, but because there's an app, there's something cool, you're hoping to get coupons, right?
Of course.
So people are very open to giving us their
loyalty
data for
rewards.
that. And that's right. You integrate with the loyalty. And so we use that. We can heat map in social media. So Crossgates Mall, for example.
You can heat map.
That's awesome. We can heat map, for example, if you log in with Facebook, we can say where's female 16 to 24, so that if you want to put a kiosk in the mall, we can tell you where's the best place to do that by time of year and things like that, right? We can tell you if you change your display in your store, not only how many people walk through the door, but were they the right people, right? Was it the demographic you're trying to get? So there's a lot of cool data you can get.
Awesome.
And so we do that, as an aggregate data. We never break it down to the individual. If some places, some customers do want us to do that and they want to connect with them individually, that's their data. It's owned by that retail location. We give them the data to there, and they're able to, and then people are obviously able to opt out or opt in depending on how much connections they want to get to. They want to get coupons, or they want to get all that. But we have custom programmers on staff that, like Planet Fitness, they get your email address. That's all they want, right? So if you want to get on there, you got to give them your email address. So it depends on what the customer, what they feel comfortable doing.
You don't create apps for the stores that we did.
So we build the portal, right? So if you log in, whether it's on a smartphone or something, it's all formatted perfectly for that.
Okay.
So it looks like an app. So if you ever connect at any of those hotels or Crossgates, right, it'll reformat based on the size of that. So web apps, we talked about that, as opposed to designing an app. We don't design apps. We work with guys like Experience Engine and a bunch of other guys that do the apps for large venues and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
so
what I was getting.
Yeah, Venue Next is another big one, right? So Venue Next, we work with that Naira. So that's spun out of Levi Stadium.
Okay.
Right. So Levi Stadium, which is in San Francisco, they wrote their own app, and it was so successful they spun a company off called Venue Next, and then they did the Orlando Magic, and they kind of got into that space. And so we were one of the first. I think we were actually the very first company that worked with them with Ruckus Wireless. They typically worked with Aruba because that's what it was written with. So we've done some pilots and actually some live successful stories like Naira works with them.
So I just went to the Venues Now conference in New York City. Shout out to Oakview Group. One of the biggest things that they were talking about at the conference was sports betting at these stadiums.
Okay.
And I'm assuming Wi-Fi would be integrated into that somehow.
Think about Naira. They're betting one way up because of the Wi-Fi.
Oh, so are you having Do you have those types of conversations with different entertainment venues? I don't know if that's
So
if you're
again,
allowed to
it's
say.
why does NYRA want to have Wi-Fi?
Right.
Right? Is it to bring people to their place? Is it to generate more revenue? Right? Is it to track people? Right? So it's really critical when we talk to people to understand that. Right? So there's places, for example, you could monitor social media. So you could say if you notice a lot of tweets coming from a certain part of the park that's talking about a flood in the toilet,
Mm-hmm.
you know how to send your maintenance guys.
Yep.
Right? That's how Disney does it.
Yep.
Right? So Disney's tracking on that kind of level.
Yep.
Right? NYRA wanted to basically allow people to come and enjoy, but they also wanted to make more money on the betting.
Of course.
Right? And so one of the things we do is if you try and go to certain websites that are not their sites, you get actually directed back to their sites. So we intercept some data.
Awesome. You gotta do what you
It's
gotta
the terms of use. If you want to use their Wi-Fi,
Of course.
if you want to bet, right, there's certain sites where you can bet on, and there's certain ones that they don't want you to bet on because they're losing revenue,
Yep.
right? And so we can help direct that based on what the venue wants, right? And so we don't create the rules, we just enforce them, and we can do just about every possible scenario you could think of, right? If you want to do tiered pricing, you can say, for free, you get to do this, but if you pay, maybe we'll let you go here or download movies or whatever you want to do.
Do you see the entertainment space as a vertical for what you're trying to do? Venues?
Venues, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, people more and more are staying at home for games, right? Because you can watch a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So now the big push is that if you go to the venue, you can have a lot of different camera angles, right? So there's an app, right? But you got to have very high density Wi-Fi so that I can stream, high density video to there. You can order food. You have location-based service so they can see where you're sitting. If you're walking to the kitchen, right, at Disney or like at some of the places we did at the amusement parks with Cedar Fair, if you order your food but you're not near where the food is, they don't start cooking it until you get closer.
Okay.
Right? So you order the food, but why would I cook your food and let it get cold? Once I see you're getting close and you're almost there, then all of a sudden your food's there and it's hot.
Well, yeah,
right?
they were actually talking about that at the conference where, you'll be able to order your food from your seat. And when
That's
it's
right.
ready, you'll get a notification that it's ready. And that way you can go up and pick up your food instead of waiting in line.
That's right. It's all being done now. In fact, they'll bring it to you.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
yeah.
And there's
that
different
too.
ways. You can do location-based services, or what some of the people want to, do it kind of the cheaper way, which works actually pretty well, is you put a QR code in every seat, right? So you got an app, you go, bink, scan my
Exactly.
seat. Now I can move around and they can know where I am. Say, bring my food right here. Your food shows up.
Yeah, one of my partners in a separate company actually built an app very similar to that we're trying to get out there. But if you really think about it, people only go to the concessions during let's say a football game
Right.
3 or 4 times, and the lines are ridiculously long.
Absolutely.
I can only imagine, food and beverage is big. How many more people would order food?
Right. Or how many more people would go to a game because they didn't have to leave their seat during, I missed the touchdown because I went out, when my
Exactly.
team was on offense, right?
Exactly.
So they're trying to make the experience better,
Yeah,
right? And so that's where when you look at venues, Wi-Fi is being used to make the experience better.
of course.
And that makes,
100%.
right? And retail is all about how do you monetize the people, right? How do you give them coupons? How do you make money off them? How do you help them shop better and do all that stuff? And then typically in hospitality, it's all about the Wi-Fi just has to work, right? If you check into a hotel and you're trying to get business done and you can't, you're going to leave a really bad review and you're never going to go back there, right? So there's like different use cases that we try and learn and understand that. And then there's always new ones coming up. Like what else are you looking to do? Like, nursing homes, right? A lot of times they walk
That's
around
a
with
yeah.
iPads, right? So they're tracking where everyone is. They got to give them their medicine, right? So a lot of times there's all these IoT devices that are now popping up that people say, I want to use this, and they become mission critical. So more and more we're seeing networks that they're being built not necessarily for the guests, but for all the IoT stuff that's being put on those networks that has to work.
Do you work with hospitals?
We do. So both on the guest side and for, people walking around. So like, people, you ever see these like Star Trek badges? Vocera makes these, right? They can actually tap them and they can connect to the Wi-Fi and someone knows where they are. They can track down doctors. They can see all that, right? So there's a lot of really sophisticated stuff that they're doing in hospitals using Wi-Fi location-based services that people don't realize happens every day.
I'm sure. So, as you grow your company, as you've grown it successfully, what would you say are the core values and principles at Deep Blue Communications?
So, we've tried to distill them down over time. You're going to put me on the spot, see if I remember them here. So, we try and create a wow experience for everyone.
Yeah.
We always have clear and honest communications, full transparency with our customers.
Huge.
to make sure that it's there. I'm gonna.
Do you believe in open dialogue, open transparency?
Yeah. So full transparency in everything we do is key to what we try and put out there.
Yeah.
In everything, right? To me, I sleep better. Even if I had a bet, we screwed up.
I don't.
Well, I try.
You get
right?
some sleep.
But there's nothing worse than like feeling like you're hiding something, right? Like I tell my kids that too, right? Like just get it out, right? You screwed up, you got it out there, learn from the mistake, and move on. And we try and build a culture that does that. And
that makes perfect sense.
Another thing is we try and create a safe environment for everyone. So you want to be honest, but you got to also recognize that there's all these, right, Me Too and diversity and like all these things. Like people are entitled to their opinions, right? And so I don't want to say I don't want to stop people from having those conversations at work, but when it stops being safe, when someone feels like they can't express those opinions because they're being discriminated, to me, that's where it crosses the line. So we try and invite people to have different opinions on that. I'm happy to give my opinion to people. I'm not ashamed of my political views and stuff, but I'm also okay if my right-hand person has a very different view. Like that's okay, right? That's how you learn. That's how you become a better person. You try and be open-minded about things. And so, but I do think, core values is something that's critical for everyone who's starting a business, so that when you're hiring people or training people or working with vendors, right? It's aligned in that. You're doing reviews, you look at your core values and you say, does that make sense, right? Did that fit in with the core values? Did that create a wow experience for them? Was it full transparency in everything you did, right? So when you go through it and it resonates in everything you do, it really helps you to not have to communicate as much between everyone about what's the right thing. Are we about profits? Are we about taking care of the customers? Are we about, whatever that is, right? And there's no right or wrong way, but be consistent.
Yeah. No, I think values is critical. How do you, I was going to ask you this before, but how do you keep up with the changing atmosphere in tech? I mean, do you read every day? Do you read a lot of books? I mean, how do you stay up to date?
So I read less and less books. I really, my wife's an avid reader, which is funny. I mean, she's in like multiple book groups and like serious book groups, like, 1,000-page books, like books written in like, the 1940s, I mean, like different centuries.
Good for her, though.
Fantastic. She was a literary major, right? Yeah. So, I mean, so I'm like, I can't get through, first paragraph, first chapter, and she's like, reading 3 books at a time. So it's
first page.
It's kind of funny because I don't read a lot of books. I read business books, but I constantly read. I mean, I'm on a million blogs. I get, I'm on the internet. I'm constantly researching things.
Is there any specific sites that you like to go to for your industry that people might find helpful?
No, I mean, there's hospitality ones. I do. It's, I go down the rabbit hole a lot. Right?
Me too. Yep.
Like it's just I got a customer need. I either know it or I don't. I pick people's brains. If I don't, I try and dive in more. The books, there's more looking at it from 30,000 feet. What makes sense? How do I become a better person and do that? But I mean, I get the Wall Street Journal. I get
Me too. Yep.
the Business Review. I get
doesn't teach experience though. And
I skim through it. I mean, I'm not just about business. I try and I'm a big, I hate to say it, the Jets fan, right? I'm a Jets, Mets, Knicks fan. It's painful, right? So I like keeping up with my sports teams. Keeps me sane, right? I like to ski. I like to fish,
something like that,
right? So occasionally I look up, about how to catch better fish, bigger fish, right? So, I try and.
Oh, you promised that boat me and you one time to go fishing. I haven't been fishing in 10 years.
There you go.
I'm gonna take you up
we'll
on
head
that.
on out on Lake George.
That'd be great.
So, but there's some great books I've read that, most of them, I'm sure you've had people, Jim Collins and all these, these classic books. They're great to get to go. And, when you talk about culture, one of the best books that I probably embraced the most was Tony Hsieh's book called Delivering Happiness. If you're starting out a business and you're thinking about culture, why do I need a culture? What does that mean? What values? It's a great book to help you through that. Yeah. I read it from New York to Vegas. I took a trip. By the time I returned home, I'm not a very fast reader. I read the whole book. So it's not a huge commitment, and a round trip plane ticket. I was done with the book. And then, my next trip out to Vegas, I was actually visiting Zappos with the team to say, and they do tours and stuff like that. So, sometimes you hit a book that hits the chord. And a lot of times I get a book and I get on a plane. And when I land in that first place, if it hasn't connected with me, I just put it down. Yeah. But if it has, then I'll be like, okay, I'm going to bring it in the room. I'm going to finish reading this and get through it. And there's a lot of books I think people write that should be 3 chapters and they make 12. And there might be some great things in those 3 chapters, but don't waste my time with 12 chapters when
Just
you
get
can
to
say
the
it in
key
3.
points. Yeah.
So,
One thing that popped in my head, would you consider yourself more of a high-level thinker or operational?
I'm
that make
definitely,
sense?
yeah. I mean, so I'm definitely a big picture person, but I'm also unique in that because I'm in a small business that I've had to execute, right? So when I started Wi-Fi,
That's
fee,
great the way you put it. High level. I don't mean to interrupt you. High
yeah,
level versus execution. So I'm a very high level. I'm just gonna be honest.
yeah,
Very high level thinker. Execution is tough for me, right? So one of the things that I need to find is someone who's operations.
without a doubt.
So anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's hard, right? And so when you're running a small business, you can't afford to go hire all those people. So you do it,
Exactly.
right? My help desk when I first started was me. I had a pager, right? My pager would go off sometimes at 2 in the morning. I'd wake up, get on the phone, and do
Oh
that.
yeah.
I mean, my wife was like, "Seriously, this is your life?"
Yep.
But eventually, you get through it, and then you hire 1 or 2 people in the help desk, and you grow. And
Mm-hmm.
next thing you know, you get to where we have 125 employees. So it takes a while. You got to be committed to doing that. So I'm very much. I get stuff done. Like I'm not afraid to dive in and do anyone's job, and I'll dive in there. So I'm kind of on both spectrums. I'm kind of not in the middle, right? So I'm not I have a lot of mid-level, managers, directors and stuff that, like you said, fill in for process. I'm not a process guy.
Yeah.
Like I can get in and do it myself, but if you're saying I got a team of 10, I got to lay out the project plan and do all that, I'm not really that guy.
Yeah.
I just kind of, just say, go get
Delegate,
it done. So like, good point though, right? Find people that are different than you. It's nice to have people that think like you as far as your values as a person, but doesn't mean they have to be the same skill set, right? And so the 2 longest employees I've had, right? So Darlene has been my CFO she came from CFO for hire part-time when I had 2 employees. She's my CFO now, right? So been with me 15 years. And then right around the same time was my Ryan Donnelly started off. He was the guy who brought in the deal with Deep Blue Wireless. He was in a totally different business, and we connected. And then he joined after that, and he became my chief operating officer. Right. And so over time, things have pivoted. Right. So now that we're part of Comcast, Darlene is now actually runs operations, and we don't need a finance team. Ryan is running our whole venue business. So he lives in Jersey. As we got bigger, it's hard to do operations remotely. Right. So we all just kind of pivoted there, but they're still both of them a key part of our team, and we connect on everything we do.
And then I don't know if I already asked this, but what is the transition? What was the process like when you got I think you met Comcast or they approached you at a conference? Could you tell us the story of how that all came to be?
Yeah, sure.
And how it all got executed? Because I'm sure the viewers will want to hear that.
Yeah. So, hospitality Wi-Fi became very hot in the investment space. So we were getting offers left and right from private equity guys. I mean, when I say left and right, I mean like multiple offers a week, right? Like people soliciting. And a lot of them were, you got to weed through them, right? Some of them were, hey, I went to Wharton Business School. I got these guys that are going to invest. I want to come in, buy your business and run it. And I'm like, well, I don't need you to run my business. I'm running it, right? So those kind of ones are out, right? But so you start looking at what's the money, right? So you start talking to people initially about what's the goals of this private equity, right? Is it, I'm just going to throw a lot of money at you guys at the business and you're going to grow it, or maybe they're not going to put any money in the business. They're just going to give the owners a lot of business money, but they have expectations, or there's a buyout or an earn out or all this stuff.
Want profits.
Right? So really I learned a lot, right, before I said yes. And I learned like, all right, my business was basically a multiple of EBITDA. And for those who don't know, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, right?
Okay.
So people look at EBITDA because it typically is a reasonable indicator for indicating how much cash are you generating, right? You could have a profit and loss. You could have profits, but you might not be generating any cash because you're putting it all back in the business.
True.
Right? So EBITDA is typically a good marker of that, right? And so a lot of businesses go for maybe 5-6 times EBITDA. So if I'm generating, say, $1 million, they might say, I'll give you $5 million for your business, knowing that after 5 years I've made whole, and then after 10 years I've made some good money on your business. And by the way, I think I can find some synergies that I can take your business and I can, instead of generating $1 million a year, I think I can generate $1.5 million.
Got it.
And then you go back to him and you go, well, you're generating $1.5 million. You should give me $7.5 million because you're actually getting, I still should get 5 times, right? So those are the conversations you go back and forth. That's
interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you try and negotiate future EBITDA based on what they can bring. Yeah. And a lot of times they're open to that, right? So I did a deal with a private equity. And the reason I went with GPB was, truthfully, they were not saying, I'm going to throw a lot of money at you. And then in 5 years, I'm going to have a preference and I'm going to sell. And if you don't get over that. So the way a preference is, if say they give you, again, $5 million for your business, and then they say in 5 years, I'm going to get out. If your business, and maybe you still own 70% of your business, right? You're like, yeah, I got 5 million. I still, for 30%. That's great, right? But in 5 years, when they cash out, if you can only sell your business for, say, 6 million, well, they take their 5 million first because that's their preference. And by the way, they might even have interest on their preference, right?
Of course.
They might have been getting 7-8% interest on that. Next thing you know, that $6 million sale, they took 5.8 of that, right? So you're left with 200,000, even though you had 70% of your business, right? So you got to be real careful about that, right? And so one of the reasons we did a deal with these guys was because we actually had no preference, and I was able to do it as a long-term, we want to see you guys grow, but ultimately we're all about profits. And so because we did that, right, it was generating a lot of distributions. It got us in a really good position that when you look at EBITDA, our EBITDA numbers looked great, right? And so now the next step, 2 years later, we still got offers from bigger private equities, and then we start getting offers from companies that are like cable companies and places like that actually want to buy. That's their home, right? And so again, they're looking at multiples of EBITDA. We were operating at a very high efficiency, but our sales growth rate was starting to slow down. And so timing was right that when Comcast came in, that's why it seemed like the right time to do that, is that we had operationally got ourselves in a good position. The ultimate exit was to do that. And my goal, again, when I sold, was I really did want to stay involved. I really care a lot about the local region, and I didn't want to buy a company that was just going to fire all the people, move them out of the area and do that. I didn't want to walk down the street and have people being like, there's the guy. That's the guy who sold me out, right? It does. So I was really pretty stuck on, I want a company that values who Deep Blue is, values the fact that we're in the capital region and wants to grow that here. And
thank you for that.
Enables that to do that. Well, yeah. I'm not asking for thanks. I just
no. I'm just saying it's good that you thought about that and I did it.
It's just so you learn over time when you're getting a lot of offers. Like, what is it that's important to you? Right? What do you want to do? And so yes, money is obviously a piece of that, right? I really do enjoy my job. I'm in charge of, so my title is now VP General Manager, Premise Wireless Solutions, right? And so I'm basically in charge of all the wireless for Comcast across the country, and the Wireless Center for Excellence is here in Troy, New York. Right, which is awesome, right? So we're hiring a lot of people, we're bringing people to the region, and hopefully we'll have $1 billion impact on Comcast, but being here in Troy and running that. And to me, that's what excites me, gets me up, and I feel good going to work every day, knowing this is what we built, right? This is the legacy that hopefully
a great legacy.
50 years from now, Deep Blue will still have a building and a bigger presence, and might just be called Comcast at the time, but we brought Comcast to Albany, right? And that's cool. And that is exciting to have that. And, the fact that our business, they see the value that we can make that kind of an impact on them means that to them, it was an easy sale for them to justify to do that if we can execute.
So, when you sell something, like you did to Comcast, I mean, how long did your phone just keep ringing for? How many emails?
After the sale?
Yeah. How was that?
It's funny too, right? Like I've had business review articles and things like that, right? The private equity deal. I've had, Saratoga Racetrack, Hilton, Marriott. But when that press release went out, and it went out, by the way, from Comcast, right? So it was on LinkedIn. It was there. Yeah. It really was overwhelming. The emails, the text messages, the phone calls, and I can't tell you how many people that are just like, what couldn't have happened to it was really nice to hear that, right? Like, amazing, so glad and everyone wanted to reach out and say that, but when you start hitting 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, it was like, I went to bed at 4:00. I mean, Comcast came in, we did the announcement, we did that, and I was just spent. Like, my phone wouldn't stop. I literally just had to turn the phone off and then just be like, I'm just going to go check out and go lie down. And I actually I went home early and I fell asleep, and I was just, so it didn't really hit me because
Did you have some tequila beforehand?
No, I didn't. We had some champagne, and that was really it, right? It was really just, from the time they came in, we closed the deal within, 60 days.
That's what
and it was just every day focused on that. Bang, like execute, right? Got to get it done. What's the list? And you get there, and then you're finally there, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, wow. Bill Stemper comes, the president, and he's talking about we're gonna have $1 billion impact on this thing, and everyone in the room is listening to that. It's like, holy crap! Like, we did this, right? We brought this to the area. This is what's going to happen. And then it's just like.
And did that light another fire under you? Not to sound corny or cliche.
It did.
I mean, or did that make you feel overwhelmed at all?
Well, it's interesting, right? When I did the private equity deal where I sold, the private equity bought a majority, so I sold 60% of my shares to the private equity guys. And it was great, right? It was nice to take some money off the table. Been building a long time, right? The days of me answering the phones, we could hire people. It was nice to put some money away. It was hard after that to motivate myself to get back in. I had to kind of reinvent myself as a CEO and to figure out like what motivates me every day, right? Because I was no longer officially in control, right? I reported up to these guys. But at the end of the day, there was plenty for me to do. There was a huge upside for me to keep growing the business for the hope that a Comcast or someone would come along. And it was about a 90-day funk that it just kind of took me to get going. Like, and again, like, you work all your time to get that check and then you get that check, right? You're like, it sounds, cliche, but it's like, wow, now, like, how do I get going, right? So, but once I got motivated, things went really well and I clicked much better with the private equity guys. And then, truthfully, when the Comcast deal happened, it was that was maybe 2 or 3 days, because I knew I had a mission to do right after, right? I had kind of been through that. I knew what the goal was. And it's a pretty tall task, right? How do you integrate quickly without losing people, without losing your culture? And we're still working at it, right? And we lost some people, and it's the culture's not the same, right? And in some ways it's better, right? And we're adapting, right? And it can't keep everyone. It's a very different business and culture. But on the other hand, I think we've done a pretty good job at retaining most of the key talent we needed. We're in a good position to grow. We're hiring a lot of new people that are coming in that are creating a new vision of where we're going so that we can grow to that $1 billion impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to adapt is key in anything. You have to adapt or you die. Just to not to be so transparent.
Well, truthfully, when you think about it, a lot of times private equities come in, they bring in a new CEO, right? And then a Comcast comes in, they bring in a new CEO, right? And so I'm active in a group called Vistage, right? And so it's a peer group of other CEOs. And Dave Natina is my shout out to Dave, my man who comes and mentors me. And I have two choices, right? I can either be who I was and be replaced, right? Or I can realize that I need to interview and be the guy, the CEO that they need going forward, right? And you just got to understand, what does that mean, right? And at first, like, no, do what you did, but not really, right? So, like, honestly, what does that mean, right? Mm-hmm. What's the expectation? What do we do? Am I in charge of sales? Am I here? Right? So we kind of had to figure it out. But once we did, it's just like, I want to be the best. I have a boss, right? I have that. And you always really do, whether it's your customers or your board or a real boss like I have now, right? Mm-hmm. You always work for someone, and it's critical that you understand what it is that they want so you can be successful.
Exactly. That's a great story. I want to flip to ask you some questions maybe about some aspiring entrepreneurs. Yeah. What do you think that every entrepreneur should ask themselves before starting a business?
Well, first of all, why do you want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
When I got in it, I didn't know what an entrepreneur was, right? When YEO came out, it was like, oh, there's this thing called entrepreneurship, and I guess you're an entrepreneur, right? Because you started a business, and I was, right? I've had 3 businesses. I've gotten involved in other businesses, but I think today, someone who just starts up a restaurant, they're like, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, no, you're a small business owner, right? And I think first off, there's a difference. Like somehow entrepreneur, again, like this sexy title, I want to be an entrepreneur. If you're not an entrepreneur, don't try and be one. Entrepreneurs are people that often try a lot of different things. A lot of times you hear about people have ADD, right? They're people that can't sit still.
I'm one of them. Yeah.
Well, it's pretty common.
I'm the ADHD. I think I'm like the extreme one.
But that often can help you.
Right? Oh no, yeah, it's definitely helped me.
You can't be afraid to take chances, right? You can't be overly aggressive, right? You need to do that. But the end game, you got to realize, like, why are you doing it, right? And I have another buddy of mine. I went to Union. He's graduated Union College a little before me. His name is Les Trackman, and he wrote a book that says, I won't say it because it actually is a curse word. So don't blank it up, right? And it's with F and then some letters in there, right? And so, and really, what the book is about is he's a CEO that comes in and he takes over businesses after, and so a lot of times when companies are bought, he goes in and he kind of drives himself in there. So he really is an entrepreneur that gets in there. But what happens is a lot of these guys, they start a business, they can't transition to what they're doing. And his whole thing is there's two choices when you want to be an entrepreneur. And he calls them king or cash, right? And so either you're becoming a business owner because maybe you want to do the right thing, you want to employ people, it makes you feel good, but it's about that usually like, feeling you get, right?
Yeah.
About I go
You
to
wake
work
up, yeah.
and I'm the king, right? Just for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm the king here. I'm the guy who gets in there. Someone gets me coffee. I can ask someone to do that. My people love me.
Yeah.
And my customers love me and I got a nice business. Then there's the guys that go, I want to make money, right? And what you realize over time is it's such a rare instance that you can combine the two, right? You can be a good boss and drive cash, but they're very different motivations. And I started out, I was that king, right? I wanted to grow a business. I had 25 people, but it was really hard to scale it past that, right?
Sure.
Eventually, you get to the point where you're like, man, I really want to make some more money, right? You start reading about everything in Silicon Valley, a switch starts going off. And when that happened was when now all of a sudden I changed my team, right? You start changing around, you start realizing that. And I ran my business very differently, right? Like you can be friendly with the people at work, but they're not your friends, right? You're there to do business first.
Yeah.
And if you can be friends with those people, and like I said, I have people that have been with me 13, 14 years that I would certainly consider friends. And at some point when I retire, I hope we'll continue to be friends, right? But they always knew business really came first, and that was just a relationship. And you have to choose the path of which you want to go. And you can't do both. You can't wonder why I'm not making money when I want to be king. And you can't be like, why aren't these guys my best friends when I'm driving them to be as their boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I would say is pick a path. Why do you want to do it? What's your goals? What are you trying to do? And I would say don't create a product and then try and find a customer for it. Usually the best stories they come organically, right? You're involved in something, you see a problem in the market. Often it's not your first business, right? You started something else and then you pivoted, right? The reason I got into IT because I was working for an elevator company and the IT guy stunk. I realized I was good at IT, right? So I think just don't get pigeonholed into, well, I grew up and I always wanted to be this and I was good at that. I should just do that, right? Like kind of let it evolve and then figure out where's the market, where do people go to you, right? So if people are coming to you and be like, hey, Pete, I really need help with this, right? That's probably something that people look to you and you're probably good at and you probably like, right? And then you start figuring out, okay, I'm actually kind of good at that. Is there a way I can make money doing this?
And
right?
that's where I'm at now.
Right?
I mean, even before, and I thought I was always going to be in promotions. Then I shifted to another business. Then I shifted to another business, and now I think I'm my third business right now, even being 33 years old.
So do you consider yourself an entrepreneur? I'm going to interview you. So do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
It's all right. Even like the like you said, the word entrepreneur, I think it's used so much. I think it's almost lost its definition. So I don't quite even know the definition of entrepreneur anymore. Okay. I would say I'm an entrepreneur in my own mind.
Yeah.
But I would say yes, I am. But I also would say I'm a small business owner. But yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I would say I'm an entrepreneur. But again, what is an entrepreneur? I would say that I'm a young, passionate, young businessman who's trying to make a name for himself, grow his business in the right way, and make a real impact on this world, right? That's what I want to do. I want to do meaningful things. I want to help people. Mm-hmm. But my grandiose idea is I want to change the world in some kind of way. So that's what I want to do, and those are the goals.
Yeah.
So more importantly, yes, I'm an entrepreneur, but what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my life, I guess? So.
Well, and is it about money, right? There's a lot of things that, people think money buys happiness.
Well, I was actually
chasing the wrong dream.
I was actually going to say, like, one thing that I learned is when I got seed funding, I got seed funding. It set me up for 2 years.
Yep.
And actually, in those 2 years were my biggest struggles. I lost like 2 or 3 deals that I thought were going to go through, which is the reason why I got that seed money. I lost a girl I was with for 10 years during that time. So that money didn't bring me any happiness. And it was almost a lesson learned to say, okay, you have to figure out what makes you happy. And then, from that, figure out kind of what you want to do for the rest of your life.
That's right.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
And you know what makes you happy is ultimately what you should go after.
Exactly.
Right?
And for me, it's kind of connecting
and
dots.
there's always a way you'll find to make money doing what makes you happy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It might not make you the money that you thought you deserved.
Exactly.
Right? But there's trade-offs, right? You got to pick in life what is it that you want to do. And it's cool. Like, to me, I'm passionate about going to work every day and building teams and seeing that go. And I like technology, right? So it was nice that I was able to put that together, that I enjoyed going to work every day. But trust me, there's a lot of stressful days.
Yep.
There's still a lot of stressful days, trying to do that. But part of it is I'm trying to make sure I get over that hump of the transition and get there. And that, to me, is meaningful and something that I want to do. And so, I would just say anyone who wants to start their own business, just think it through. Don't get stuck on starting your own business. Just let it happen based on what are you good at?
Passion.
What do you like? Does it really make sense? And by the way, are you going to be happy with the lifestyle that you think you're going to make doing that?
Yeah, because it does take a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of sacrifice.
I mean, not everyone wakes up and says, I enjoy money. I'm going to be a financial planner. I'm going to go do that, right? You could usually do pretty well making money that way. But a lot of people don't like doing that, right?
No.
Or selling insurance, right? That's a hard thing to do.
Agreed.
But if you really love sales, if you love going out there and doing that, you can sell anything. Right.
Yeah. I know.
So, but it's true.
Yeah,
right?
and honestly,
but most salespeople will tell you they can only sell the things that they like, right?
Me, 100%. 100%. And that's actually what I was going to say, what I found that I was best at, from promotions to events to a few other things. It's really what I found I was good at selling, and I was good at connecting dots, but I only like selling the things I'm passionate about. So I think that's a great
and
point.
So like, being like an agent for someone like a Deep Blue, right? You're passionate about sports and all that stuff, but you're not passionate about Wi-Fi, right?
Who, me personally?
Yeah,
no, I would say I'm actually passionate about Wi-Fi because I know where 5G
That's
is.
right. I'm just busting on you.
No. But honestly, I know where 5G is taking the industry. I'm very fascinated on what it's going to do for the sports and entertainment space is really what I'm in right now. Even like what we talked about before,
right.
Simply the ability to order your food from your seat, right?
Yeah.
Being able to place bets during the game. Right. And you got to remember that people are going to be doing bets play by play, right?
That's right.
So the Wi-Fi has to be on point and correct.
That's right.
So I understand the whole business model. Even when now, you have these stadiums which are becoming the anchors for economic development,
right.
And they're building retail around them. They want them supported all by one Wi-Fi system, right? So I realize how important that information is, the data is, all of that. So I find it very fascinating.
You should come sell for us because that's what it is, right?
People
understand it. You get passionate about it.
And honestly, that's.
And if you're just saying, oh, you want to connect and you do that, that doesn't sell deals. But when it's like, this is what we love doing, right?
Yeah,
this is why,
100%.
And we're building the best team, right? And we're not the cheapest guys in the business. And a lot of people don't get that. They're like, oh, my uncle can go and install that, right?
I would say you're almost. I would say you're almost identical to the actual developer of the building. How important Wi-Fi is to the building.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents. But so, I guess the last question will be, what are your plans for 2020 for Deep Blue?
For 2020, we're trying to get back to executing, but at a higher level. We're going to do, 40 to 50 million, as our baseline, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow. Integrating into Comcast, what they do is imperative. Training those people there, right? So Comcast has thousands of salespeople. How do we take our little $40 million company and how do we get their 4,000 salespeople?
Not little. 40 million. Not little.
It's all relative, right? So, but if we can do that, right? That's how you figure out how do you become $100 million pretty quick, or $200 million, or $500 million, and doing that. So, it's productizing what we do so that the people in the field that are knocking on doors can sell what people is. So that's really my goal for 2020 is to get that vision out there.
Great. Well, look, I want to thank you again for your time. I know how busy you are, and just taking the time out of your day to speak with us and to speak to the people who follow our channels. Do you have a website, deepbluecommunications.com?
We do.
Okay, can we put that up on the screen for everyone to check out? So I look forward to continue following your business and staying in touch with you, and hopefully someday you and I will
do as well.
Yeah, and someday you and I will do some business.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks a lot, Brian.